The donkey Cabbage. There was once a young hunter who went boldly into the forest. He had a merry and light heart, and as he went whistling, there he came along to an ugly old woman who said to him, "Good day, hunter. You are very merry and contented, but I suffer hunger and thirst. Give me a trifle." The hunter was sorry for the poor old woman, and he felt in his pocket and gave her all he could spare. He was going on then. The old woman stopped him and said, "Listen, dear hunter, to what I say. Because of your kind heart, I will make you a present. Go on your way, but in a short time you will come to a tree on which sits 9 birds who have a cloak in their claws and are quarreling over it. Then take aim with your gun and shoot the middle of them. They will let the cloak fall, but one of the birds will be hit and drop down dead. Take the cloak with you. It is a wishing cloak, and when you throw it on your shoulders, you have only to wish yourself at a certain place, and in the twinkling of an eye, you're there. Take the heart out of the dead bird and swallow it whole, and every early morning you will get up and you will find a gold piece under your pillow." Odd. The hunter thanked the wise woman and thought to himself, "These are splendid things she has promised me, if only they come to pass." So he walked about 100 yards, and then he heard above him in the branches such a screaming and chirping that he looked up, and there he saw a heap of birds tearing at a cloth with their beaks and feet, shrieking and tugging and fighting, and as if they wanted it for himself. Oh. "Well," said the hunter, "this is wonderful. It is just as the old woman said." And he took his gun off his shoulder and pulled the trigger and shot in the midst of them, so that the feathers flew about. Then the flock took flight with much screaming, but one fell dead and the coat fluttered to the ground. Then the hunter did as the old woman had told him. He cut open the bird and found its heart and swallowed it, and he took the cloak home with him. The next morning when he woke, he remembered the promise and waited to see if it had come true. But when he lifted up his pillow, there sparkled the gold piece. And the next morning he found another, and so on, every time he got up. He collected a heap of gold, and at last he thought to himself, "What good is all my gold to me if I stay home? I will travel and look a bit about me in the world." So he took leave of his parents, slung his hunting knapsack on and his gun around him, and journeyed into the world. It happened that one day he went through a thick wood, and when he came to the end of it, there lay in the plain before him a large castle. At one of the windows in it stood an old woman with the most beautiful maiden by her side looking out. But the old woman was a witch, and said to the girl, "There comes out of the wood who has a wondrous treasure in his body, which we must manage to possess ourselves of. Darling daughter, we have more rights to it than he. He has a bird's heart in him, and so every morning there lies a piece of gold under his pillow." She told her how they could get hold of it, and how she was to coax it from him, and at last threatened her angrily, "And if you do not obey me, you shall repent it." When the hunter came nearer, he saw the maiden, and said to himself, "Well, I've traveled so far that I should rest and turn into a beautiful castle. Plenty of money I have in it." But the reason was that he had caught sight of the lovely maiden's face. Thank you. He went into the house and was kindly received, and hospitality was given, and he was definitely entertained. It was not long before he was so much in love with her that the maiden thought of nothing else, and looked only at her eyes, and whatever she wanted, that he gladly did. Then the old witch said, "Now we must have the bird heart. He will not feel it when it is gone." So she prepared him a drink, and when she had poured it into a goblet, gave it to the maiden, who had to hand it to the hunter. "Drink with me now, my dearest," she said. Then he took the goblet, and when he had swallowed the drink, the bird heart came out of his mouth. The maiden had to get hold of it secretly, and then swallow it herself, for the old witch wanted to have it. Thenceforth he found no more gold under his pillow, and it lay under the maiden's. But when he was so much in love and so much bewitched that he thought of nothing else except spending all of his time with the maiden, then the old witch said, "We have the bird heart. We must also get the wishing cloak from him." The maid answered, "Will we leave him that? He has already lost his wealth." The old witch grew angry and said, "Such a cloak is a wonderful thing. It is seldom to be had in this world, and I must have it and will." So she beat the maiden, and said that if she did not obey, it would go ill with her. So she did her mother's bidding, and standing one day in the window, she looked away into the far distance, as if she were very sad. "Why are you standing there looking so sad?" asked the hunter. "Alas, my love," she replied, "over there lies a granite mountain where the most costly precious stones grow. I have a great longing to go there, so that when I think of it I am very sad. For who can fetch them? Only the birds who fly. The man, never." "If you have no other trouble," said the hunter, "that one I can easily remove from your heart." So he wrapped her round in the cloak, and wished themselves to the granite mountain. And in an instant they were there, sitting on it. The precious stones sparkled so brightly on all sides that it was a pleasure to see them, and they collected the most beautiful and costly together. But now the old witch had thought her witchcraft caused the hunter's eyes to become heavy. He said to the maiden, "Why we sit down here a little while and rest? I'm so tired that I can hardly stand on my feet." So they sat down, and he laid his head on her lap and fell asleep. As soon as he was sound asleep, she unfastened the cloak from his shoulders and threw it around her own, and left the granite and stones, and wished herself home again. But when the hunter had finished his sleep and awoke, he found that his love had betrayed him and left him alone on the wild mountain. "Oh," he said, "why is faithlessness so great in the world?" I wonder that. And he sat down in sorrow and trouble, not knowing what to do. But the mountain belonged to fierce and huge giants who also lived and traded there, and he had not sat long before he saw 3 of them standing towards him. So he lay down as if he had fallen back into a deep sleep. The giants came up and first pushed him with a foot and said, "Oh, what sort of earthworm is that?" The second said, "Crush him dead." But the third said contemptuously, "It is not worth the trouble. Let him live. He cannot remain here, and if he goes higher up the mountain, the clouds will take him and carry him off." Thus they went away. But the hunter listened to their talk, and as soon as they had gone, he rose and climbed to the summit. When he had sat there a little while, a cloud swept by, and seizing him, carried him away. It traveled for a time in the sky, and then it sank down and hovered over a large vegetable garden surrounded by walls, so that it came safely to the ground amidst cabbages and vegetables. The hunter then looked at him, saying, "If only there was something to eat. I am so hungry, and it will go badly with me in the future, for I see not an apple or pear or fruit of any kind. Nothing but vegetables everywhere." At last he thought, "At a pinch I can eat salad. It does not taste as well as I'd like, but it will refresh me." So he looked about for a good head of cabbage and ate it. But no sooner had he swallowed a couple of mouthfuls than he felt very strange and found himself wonderfully changed. 4 legs began to grow on him, and a thick head, and 2 long ears, and he saw with horror that he had changed into a donkey. But as he was still very hungry, and this juicy salad tasted better to him as a donkey, he went on eating with a much greater appetite. At last he got hold of another kind of cabbage, but scarcely had he swallowed it when he felt another change, and he once more regained his human form. The hunter now lay down and slept off his weariness. When he awoke the next morning, he broke off a head of the bad and a head of the good cabbage, thinking, "This will help me regain my own, and to punish faithlessness." Then he put the heads in his pocket and climbed the wall and started off to seek the castle of his love. When he had wandered about a couple of days, he found it quite easily. Then he dirtied his face quickly so that his own mother would not have known him, and went into the castle, where he begged for lodging. "I'm so tired, and I can go no further," the witch asked. "Countryman, who are you, and what is your business?" He answered, "I am the messenger of the king, and have been sent to seek the finest salad that grows under the sun. And I've been lucky to find it, and I'm bringing it with me. But the heat of the sun is so great that the tender cabbage threatens to grow soft, and I do not know if I shall be able to bring it any farther." When the old witch heard of the fine salad, she wanted to eat it, and said, "Dear countryman, let me taste this wonderful salad." "Why not?" he answered. "I brought 2 heads with me, and will give you 1. So saying, he opened his sack and gave her the bad one. The witch suspected no evil, and her mouth watered to taste this new dish, so she went into the kitchen to prepare it herself. When it was ready, she could not wait until it was served at the table, but she took a couple of leaves and put them in her mouth. No sooner, however, had she swallowed them than she lost her human form and ran into the courtyard in the shape of a donkey. Now the servant came into the kitchen, and when he saw the salad standing there ready, she was just about to carry it up. But on the way, according to her old habit, she tasted it and also ate a couple of leaves. Immediately the charm worked, and she too became a donkey, and ran out to join the old witch, and the dish with the salad in it fell to the ground. In the meantime, the messenger was sitting with the lovely maiden, and as no one came with the salad, she wanted very much to taste it. She said, "I don't know where the salad is." Then thought the hunter, "The cabbage must have already begun to work," he said. "I will go to the kitchen and fetch it myself." When he came there, he saw 2 donkeys running around the courtyard, but the salad was lying on the ground. "Well, that's all right," he said. "2 have had their share." He lifted the remaining leaves up and laid them in the dish and brought them to the maiden. "I am bringing you the delicious food my own self," he said, "so that you need wait no longer." Then she ate, and as the others had done, she at once lost her human form and ran as a donkey into the yard. When the hunter had washed his face so that he changed ones might know him, he went into the yard, saying, "Now you will receive reward for your faithlessness." He tied all three up with a rope and drove them away until he came to a mill. He knocked at the window, and the miller put his head out and asked what he wanted. "Well, I've 3 tiresome animals," he answered, "which I don't want to keep any longer. If you will take them and give them food and stabling, and do as I tell you with them, I will pay you as much as you want." The miller replied, "Why not? What shall I do with them?" The hunter said that he was able to keep the old donkey, which was a witch, 3 beatings and 1 meal. To the younger one, which is the servant, 1 beating and 3 meals. And to the youngest one, which was a maiden, no beating and 3 meals. For he could not find it in his heart to let the maiden be beaten. Then he went back to the castle, and he found there all he had wanted. After a couple of days, the miller came and said that he must tell him the old donkey, which was have 3 beatings and 1 meal, had died. "The 2 others," he added, "are certainly not dead, and they get their 3 meals every day, but they are so sad that they cannot last much longer." Then the hunter took pity on them, laid his anger aside, and told the miller to drive them back here again. And when they came, he gave them some of the good cabbage to eat, so that they became human again. Then the beautiful maiden fell on her knees before him, saying, "Oh, my dearest, forgive me of the ill. My mother compelled me to do it. It was against my will, for I love you dearly. Your wishing cloak is hanging in a cupboard, and as for the bird heart, I will make a drink and give it back to you." But he changed his mind and said, "Keep it. It makes no difference, for I will take you as my own dear true wife." The wedding was celebrated, and they lived happily together until death.